On today's menu, we're talking about the Warner Brothers 100 Movie Challenge.
Didn't we already do that?
No, in episode 2, we casually said we completed the challenge, but now we finally get to wow the listeners and go in depth about it. Do you know how hard it is to do 100 of something? Of anything? This episode took us a bit to put together, okay?
Okay, but I thought we could talk about how the next Star Trek movie is being directed by Toby Haynes, or the new Harry Potter series that's in the works, or even the Superman Kingdom Come logo reveal.
There, you just did it. All this and probably not more on today's Geeklare. Welcome back to another episode of Geeklare. I'm here and so is Kit. Say hi, Kit.
Hi, Kit.
Considering we just rang in both New Year's and Chinese New Year's, I thought I'd talk about my amazing end to 2023.
Happy 2024 and Year of the Dragon, everyone.
Guess what I did, Kit?
Planted a truffle tree orchard to offset the effects of global warming.
No, not quite.
For just the price of one cup of coffee a day, you sponsored Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael.
No, but now I want to.
Oh, I know. You took the trial of grasses. You got your sandworm rider's license.
No, I completed the Warner Brothers 100 Movie Challenge.
I guess the opening should have clued me in.
2023 was Warner Brothers' 100th year in business. In 1923, thanks to pooled funds, their father Benjamin's hawked gold watch, and a personal loan from a banker, Albert, Harry, Jack, and Sam Warner formally incorporated Warner Brothers Pictures. Though their first nationally syndicated film was actually 1918's My 4 Years in Germany. It was based on the book My 4 Years in Germany by former Ambassador James Gerard. Same title, how convenient. I mention that movie because Warner Brothers tends to start its canon with its first feature-length film with audible dialogue, Alan Crosland's 1927 The Jazz Singer featuring Al Jolson and Mae McAvoy. It had 11 musical numbers and about 2 minutes of lip syncing.
Well, didn't you just drop a history bomb on our listeners? Happy 105th birthday, Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers is entering an uncertain future in 2024. There's rumors of buyouts from Universal and rumors of mergers with Paramount. Tom Cruise just signed with WB to try to give them some original hits again. James Gunn is building his new DC. There's a Harry Potter TV show in the works, like Kit was saying. And sometime in 2024, we should be seeing a Blob remake.
Oh, my favorite blobby is in Everett Downing Jr. and Patrick Harpin's 2023's My Dad the Bounty Hunter. I thought it was cool that between the two of them, they wrote most of the episodes and directed a couple too.
No, I mean the cult classic horror movie remake.
Oh,
Warner Brothers Internet challenged people to watch 100 of their films throughout the year to celebrate their anniversary, preferably 100 that they greedily resold to consumers in multiple physical and digital box sets. I stuck to ones that were already streaming and or in my collection. It took me from January until New Year's Eve 2023, but I did it. I watched 100 movies.
you did it for charity, right? Did you at least win like a snazzy prize? Oh, like dinner with Batman. He gives you a tour of the Batcave. You guys tool around Gotham in the Batmobile, and then you top it off with dinner and cocktails at the Iceberg Lounge, where you learn all about how hard it is to find a homeschool teacher that can work around Robin's impromptu city saving schedule.
No, no prize. Not even a plastic Green Lantern ring in a cereal box.
Not even a little Orphan Annie decoder ring.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Well, even though you have nothing to show for it, that's still an accomplishment. I mean, like, definitely no one else in our office did that.
You're so funny. Well, laugh at me all you want, Kit.
Donnie, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing near you.
I mostly had a great time rewatching these movies, and in some cases watching them for the first time.
Lay it on us, Ted Turner. What classic movies did you watch?
So, originally, I wasn't even going to do the challenge, When Universal had their 100th anniversary a few years ago, I tried the same thing and I barely got halfway through. But The Flash was coming out, and Michael Keaton's Batman was in it, and Christopher Reeve's Superman was supposed to be in it too. So, leading up to that release, I was like, well, okay, guess I'd better rewatch their movies at least so I can spot all the Easter eggs. So I did. Then I saw The Flash in theaters, and I was like, well, that's 7 movies done right there.
Well, golf clap for Donnie. Time well spent. Between all the sketchy Ezra Miller stuff, Batman Returns barely being referenced, and Christopher Reeves only being on screen for what, 5 seconds? I mean, great Caesar's ghost. Nicolas Cage's Superman did more in that movie.
Well, I like The Flash because of its heart and its attempt at honoring DC's film and comic history, though I do emphasize attempt. The humor was too heavy sometimes, and I wish the ending was better, but I won't mind watching it again. Besides, Christopher Reeves and Michael Keaton's movies are always fun. After that, I thought about how many Warner Brothers movies I had already watched without even trying. Like, there was a Friday the 13th in January, and I realized I had already watched the New Line Cinemas portion of the Jason franchise.
Don't tell me you cheated. New Line is a Warner Brothers subsidiary.
Warner Brothers included New Line titles and stuff other studios originally distributed in some of their re-releases. If Warner Brothers counts it as canon, so do I.
All right, if Warner Brothers says it, I guess the stuff you watch does count after all. Ooh, that also means I get to highlight some Rutger Hauer films too, and not just the obvious 1982 Ridley Scott directed Blade Runner and the 1985 Richard Donner directed Lady Hawk.
I know he did video game voice work too, for Kingdom Hearts 3 and PlayStation's reissue of that adventure survival game, The Observer System Redo. It's a murder mystery that all takes place in the same apartment complex. Bloober Team worked a lot of adaptive trigger and haptic feedback features into that game. Surface textures, heartbeats, the damage you take. Check that game out, you guys. Matter of fact, I got Kit System Redo for Christmas.
It was such a sweet present. Thank you, thank you. I loved it. Besides being confined to the same apartment complex for more than half the game, that was irritating. Most of the horror came from jump scares, and I got super annoyed with the endless hall. And that was just the first hour.
Did Rutger Hauer sound like his characters from Split Second or Blade Runner at all?
No, he wasn't like Harley Stone or Roy Batty. It's 2084. The world's been devastated by plagues and war. Everyone is either addicted to virtual reality or drugs.
So it's now?
No, you're a detective in Observer's police unit. You go to an apartment complex and get a message from your estranged son. Once you find a decapitated body, the place goes into lockdown. You're allowed to jack and hack into witnesses' minds and use anything they ever did, felt, or remembered to solve the case. The worst part for me was his monotone line delivery. I could palpably feel him phoning it in. Remember to look broody and sexy waiting for my Uber, water the bougainvillea, and pick up the aquavit and Farico for the party. It would have been so awesome if Observer had been about Roy, and if they'd leaned into his character's deeply self-aware moment, that not only his life, but that his death was so meaningless and in vain. It would have made a really Shakespearean tragic kind of game, but it would have been impactful. I was so impressed when I learned that the Blade Runner soliloquy was actually written by the actor that improvised it and not a screenwriter.
You're talking about I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain.
Well, he said it broody too, but maybe a little sexier. But yeah, that's the exact quote. It gives me all the feels, but we don't get any of that in Observer. Anyway, the news of Ricker's passing really bummed me out. I loved his movies, Most people watched Gary Sherman's 1986 Wanted Dead or Alive because they were fans of the old Western TV series of the same name with Steve McQueen, who played Josh Randall. Rutger's Nick Randall is a descendant of McQueen's Josh and is also a retired CIA operative turned bounty hunter. The CIA hires him to recapture terrorist Malik Alrem, played by Gene Simmons, who bombed a movie theater.
Most people didn't realize at the time that Gene Simmons was multilingual and considered him a peculiar choice for the terrorist.
I thought Gene did really well, and I'm still surprised they haven't cast the demon in more movies. Tony Malam's Split Second. It's a 1992 B-horror action film about a detective hunting the serial killer that murdered his partner. Co-starring Kim Cattrall of Logan's Run and Big Trouble in Little China. Without spoilers, would someone tell me how the killer is able to go unseen in a nightclub? And who the hell taught him how to hold a pen, let alone write taunting letters and neatly package and ship a human heart to the cops? And last but not least, Folk Noises' 1989 Blind Fury. It's an American remake of Zatoichi Challenged. Zatoichi is a 26-film, 100-episode TV series about a blind samurai. Zatoichi also inspired the One Piece character Admiral Fujitora. I only mention that because this past year there was a Luffy float in America's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
But getting back to me, so like I said, I watched Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy vs. Jason, and Jason X.
I see you pick people's least favorite Jason flicks to kick off your viewing. Please tell me the list gets better.
I'm not going to pretend that Jason Goes to Hell is a good movie, but it is an important movie in the Friday franchise. It gives us a canonical reason for Jason's constant resurrections, and a canonical reason why all those actors look different. It introduced Jason's dad, who we've never seen on screen, and hopefully finally will in the Crystal Lake Memoirs TV series when that drops later this year. And it gave us that great teaser ending for Freddy vs. Jason, which fans had to wait 10 years to see. But when we got there, I think it was worth it. More on that later. Jason X, well, they tried to subvert audience expectations, and it was a nice try, but they took it a little too far with the whole in space thing. But nonetheless, some people had fun with that movie and can still have fun with that movie as an over-the-top Jason Goes to Space thing. Plus, it technically may have had the most kills in the entire series if you count that whole 20,000 people in the blown-up building thing, which some people do, some people don't. And they made creative decisions in that movie that even Kane Hodder disagreed with. When Robo Jason, Uber Jason wouldn't even love his mama. And I do like that they tried to tie it back to the first one. Freddy vs. Jason, come on. It's Robert Englund's probably last appearance canonically as Freddy Krueger. People waited 10 years for that movie, and we don't get enough horror crossovers. That one was a good one. They had some good fight scenes. Ronnie Yu did great directing that. Some amazing visuals in that one. I do wish Freddy had killed more people, though.
Then I watched Space Jam for Black History Month.
Hold up. You pick Space Jam instead of, say, Chill Factor, Fallen, or Tenet, or even a real-life bio like Thelonious Monk, Jimi Hendrix, or Malcolm X? You know, Donnie, just because Bugs Bunny started as a black and white cartoon doesn't mean he's appropriate viewing for Black History Month. And no, before you say it, Daffy Duck and Sylvester the Cat wouldn't count either. Honestly, Space Jam.
Michael Jordan's a pop culture icon, not to mention a sports goat.
True dat, nothing but that.
Space Jam was a great 90s film. You got Billy West, Philip J. Fry himself as Bugs. You got Bill Murray in there. You got Newman from Seinfeld. It's 90s AF, and I love it. For a movie that began life as a shoe ad, it's way better than it had any right to be. And for the record, for Black History Month, I also saw The Color Purple. I was also going to watch 42, but I specifically saved it for my 42nd movie. I didn't want to repeat the same gaffe after I realized too late that I should have saved one of my Jason films for the 13th movie. My only mistake with 42 was waiting that long to watch it. Chadwick Boseman's so good in it, and it's terrible we can't get more of him. So then, I watched Valentine on Valentine's Day.
You know, at first, because they recast Christy Swanson and Rutger Hauer, I didn't actually want to watch the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. Eventually, though, I didn't mind Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I warmed to David Boreanaz enough that I watched him on Angel and Bones. Hell, I even liked the Bone Sleepy Hollow crossover they did, but I have to admit I preferred Sleepy Hollow more. Did you know that David Boreanaz directed too?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he directed the first episode of The Finder. It's a 13-episode Bone spinoff loosely based on Richard Greener's The Locator books, starring George Stoltz and the late Michael Clark Duncan.
It's on Disney Plus if anyone wants to check it out.
Boreanaz also did some video game voice work on Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 remakes developed by Square Enix. But I digress. As you were saying, you saw Valentine and...
I'm a sucker for holiday horror movies. Halloween on October 31st, Leprechaun on March 17th, Uncle Sam on the 4th of July, etc., etc. And I like Buffy and Angel, so this one was in my yearly rotation anyway. That was an easy watch. And I understand the novel's even better, but I haven't seen it yet. Or I should say I haven't read it yet. So with those movies down already, I was like, okay, maybe I can successfully do this challenge.
You know, if you'd given me a heads up, I could have done it with you.
You just teased me for doing this like 5 minutes ago.
Well, the nerve of you. FYI, I'm also a Warner Brothers fan. I've seen oodles of their movies, not to mention put plenty of their songs on my playlists. Who doesn't like Superfly? Not to mention Princess Purple Rain soundtrack.
Featuring the greatest band in the world, Morris Day and the Time. If my family's listening to this, that was a Kevin Smith reference. Please don't start buying me Morris Day albums.
No, please rickroll him with Morris Day CDs. My school must have gotten kickbacks from Yakko, Wacko, and Dot because it seems like they only showed us films from the Warner Brothers catalog. My military history professor either wanted to be Errol Flynn, who could blame him, he looked like Stu Cook from CCR, or had a crush on Olivia de Havilland, again, who wouldn't, she's stunning, because he picked Michael Curtis's 1936's Charge of the Light Brigade. Then our lit professor decided to show us Mr. Kubrick's 1968 movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey, starring Keir Dullea, and No Cookies for You, Gary Lockwood.
Nice tip of the Space Cadet hat to Final Space there, Kit.
And I get to mention David Tennant, who voiced Lord Commander. I consider that a win-win. It'd be a win trifecta if Olin Rogers could bring the series back. Red Dwarf fans should give the Final Space a go. It's a fun binge.
If Hulu can bring back Futurama, why not Final Space?
By the by, my takeaway from 2001 is it's not Skynet's fault that your Roomba and Hal are out to get you. It's fallible programmers.
Those are great movies. Those are all great movies. They didn't make my list, but my dad did own the 2001 Space Odyssey VHS tape that they had to split into two back in the day because it was so long. Now we have the Snyder Cut at our fingertips. We're spoiled now.
You know what bugs me about that, Donnie? Do it right the first time. Don't milk completionist fans or the casual viewer who wants a good movie to start with.
Don't tell me, tell Netflix.
Dear Netflix, you gotta put Zeki Boy into therapy. Stop indulging his Freudian tendencies. They're beyond distracting. Don't wind me up. Zach started with the exploitation in Sucker Punch. Then follows it straight through the opening of Rebel Moon, with the two galaxies stooping. He's either giving a euphemistic F-off to Star Wars, or he's laughing harder than pudding, because he snuck porno into a space opera. Kiss, kiss, Holly. Like I was saying, though, you're not the only one who binged Warner Brothers in 2023. Not even accidentally, Donnie. For example, every New Year's Eve, I watch Royal Walsh's 1945 The Horn Blows at Midnight. It's a screwball rom-com starring Jack Benny as an angel that's supposed to end the world.
That one I also missed on my list, but I did see The Campaign, another great Warner Brothers comedy. Cam Brady 012.
My Halloween standard is Frank Capra's 1944 Arsenic and Old Lace starring Cary Grant. It's a madcap screwball black comedy. Cary plays a newlywed Mortimer Brewster who's trying to avoid paparazzi and other press hounds because he spent his life as an author and columnist doing articles about the futility of marriage. He takes new wife Priscilla Lane home to meet his family, only to discover there's a dead man in his maiden auntie's parlor. I love the set, fast-paced dialogue, and particularly the casting. I think it's a showcase for the supporting cast. His doting aunties are lovable, and his brothers are a trip. And personally, I love Jack Carson's dense neighborhood beat cop.
Dang it, that's another good one. Apparently, Frank Capra felt that World War II was inevitable. So, he promised WB to make the movie on the cheap. They only had to pause once during the remarkably short 4-week shooting schedule because of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
I like that this was one of the films they showed to the service guys overseas before they released it domestically.
Considering about 90% of the movie took place in the Brewster's parlor, it freed up more money for them to land a big name like Cary Grant.
It didn't hurt that three of the actors reprised their Broadway stage roles for the film, too.
Speaking of being clever with a schedule, I thought I'd knock out a bunch of the challenge during Halloween, but I only got in 8 movies.
Which ones?
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, barring any setbacks, should come out in September this year. I'm excited for that. The cast will include Jenna Ortega and William Dafoe. Michael Keaton's back, Catherine O'Hara's back, and Winona Ryder. I also saw A Clockwork Orange featuring one of our favorite creeps, Malcolm McDowell. In a futuristic UK, he volunteers for experimental aversion therapy to get a lighter prison sentence. Things don't go as planned. Then I saw Murder at 1600. Wesley Snipes is a DC cop that convinces Secret Service agent Diane Lane to help him follow the evidence, despite the fact that the Secret Service might be covering up the murder that took place in the White House. Then I watched Tim Burton's Corpse Bride, which was based off a 19th century Russian Jewish folk tale. The ghost of a bride thinks she was proposed to when a living groom inadvertently practices his wedding vows in front of her.
Burton's stop motion is really spectacular. I think Ray Harryhausen would be proud. I love the dogs in his movies. Between Zero from this one and Sparky from Frankenweenie, he just hits all the feels. The wee waggy tails are just so adorable.
Next up for Halloween was James Gunn's Scooby-Doo the Movie, featuring the aforementioned Sarah Michelle Gellar and her husband Freddie Prinze Jr. as the jerkin' and ascot Fred, and the phenomenal Matthew Lillard. Bring back Stu.
I'm more fond of that Futurama ascot line than I should be. I was also impressed with Matthew's dramatic acting turn in 2013's The Bridge and 2016's Bosch.
Jack Nicholson's The Shining was next. He plays Jack Torrance, a recovering alcoholic and an aspiring writer. He takes his family with him to be the off-season caretakers of Colorado's Overlook Hotel. With dark forces at work, the family's forecast is dim. My dad always used to say that actors playing characters that have their same name is because they're too stupid to remember a character name. The House of Wax remake was next. That one's better than most people remember. You got Paris Hilton in there. She does a pretty good performance, surprisingly. You got Jared Padalecki in there. You got producers Joel Silver and Robert Zemeckis even, although I know you missed Vincent Price, kid.
Yeah, I do.
And I watched Godzilla 2014. But I get it. Okay. Point is, you love Warner Brothers too. I'll definitely tell you the next time I do a 100th anniversary binge.
Donnie, there's going to be another 100th. Actually, Columbia Pictures just celebrated its 100th anniversary. Want to do that challenge next?
I don't know. Should we? Listeners, comment down below if this episode does well enough. We'll see.
Okay, what was next on your list?
The Batman.
Oh, wow. Such a classic year-old film. You know, you could have watched another great comedy like The Man Who Came to Dinner with Monty Woolley. Granted, most people watch it for Bette Davis, but I'm not really a fan.
So one might say you don't have eyes for Bette Davis.
I like the song a lot more than the actress. Cinesnobs can stop clutching their pearls. I just prefer Billy Burke. She's an absolute gem. You know, why not watch Brother Orchid or Little Caesar? Before you ask, it's not about that toga-wearing pizza cartoon. For Labor Day, you could have even watched Yankee Doodle Dandy, which is also not a dramatic biopic about the inventor of macaroni.
Although someone should make that. It worked for Oppenheimer.
Great. Now you got me picturing Mario Brothers Pasta Emporium.
Chris Pratt, is that you? Look, I get your point about watching classic cinema, but I chose what I chose partially because a 100th celebration shouldn't be just about the artsy-fartsy black and white movies. It should be about the studio's current and future history, too.
If they hadn't lost so many great films to time and natural disaster, the list could have been longer and more obscure, Donnie. Considering they started back in 1923, there were bound to be a lot of black and white movies to pick from. Just be happy they didn't include all the silent film.
Anyway, I think The Batman might be the best solo live-action Batman movie ever, which I know sounds like a lot of qualifiers to try to make it the best of something, but it's really not. I can't wait for that sequel. I'm both excited for it and scared that they're gonna ruin the first one. I liked it so much, I got the DVD when I was out shopping one day. And a Nirvana CD because I couldn't get that stupid song out of my head.
Mostly because I was so fond of Christian Bale's iteration of Batman, I didn't see the need for a reboot. I wasn't looking forward to seeing the movie, but my love of Batman outweighed my dislike of Robert Pattinson.
Then I saw Assassins for the challenge. Sylvester Stallone versus Antonio Banderas. What's not to love about that? Sylvester Stallone is a cleaner who wants to whack a few more stiffs before he retires, until younger, flashier Antonio Banderas keeps beating him to the mark. And he's also trying to erase Sylvester, too. It's a classic 90s action movie.
Just heard that Reed Diamond from the cop show series Homicide: Life on the Street was in it too. In my opinion, El Mariachi is one of the best action trilogies ever. I've been a Banderas fan ever since I saw Robert Rodriguez's 1995 Desperado. But yeah, Sly Stallone made a bunch of Warner Brothers movies. Did you watch any more of those?
I did. After Assassins, I watched Tango and Cash. It is literally the last buddy cop movie of the 80s. It was released on December 22nd, 1989. Buddy cop movies are one of the most fun subgenres, and it gets to be the last one. I thought that was just really cool. And this is one of the only times Sylvester Stallone shares the action movie spotlight before The Expendables, and he does it with Kurt Russell, who's always great.
I love Sly's chemistry with Kurt Russell, though I have to admit I like Kurt more in Stargate and Tombstone. There's a couple reasons why I preferred Paul W.S. Anderson's 1998 movie Soldier, though. A. Soldier and Blade Runner are both set in the same world. It's obvious that Tyrell and mutations are partnering together due to their interest in AI, bioweapons, and genetics. B. Just like for Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, they cast Wyatt Russell to portray Kurt's character as a youth. 3. That movie blows apart the concept that without great speaking parts, an actor can't succeed. Echo on Disney Plus at least lets the cast use sign language. Russell maybe says 100 words for the entire movie. His eyes and body language are so emotive, the entire film has more heart and depth than a simple sci-fi action flick should. Lastly, it didn't hurt that Jason Scott Lee of Mortal Kombat and Time Cop 2 was also in it.
I also saw the Sly adjacent Creed 3 in theaters and was pleasantly surprised how good it was without Rocky. Michael B. Jordan did a good job directing and starring in it. You know, I usually clock when a company does something unusual with their logo. Well, for Creed 3, when you see Leo the Lion roar, you don't hear it. Instead, they put hip-hop music over it.
And of course, Jonathan Majors was in that movie too and did a good job, but probably no Creed 4 for him. We covered him in a previous episode. Go listen to that if you haven't already. And I know Kit's a big fan of Lovecraft Country. Probably no more of that for him either. Well, no more Lovecraft Country, period, and that's a shame because that was a good show.
Disney announced they're going to recast Kang the Conqueror after all. So, Atticus Freeman could get the same treatment.
Ooh.
Yeah, here's your deal with the devil, okay? Here's your monkey's paw. You get more Lovecraft Country, okay? But it stars Jaleel White. Okay, seriously, how about Sterling K. Brown?
Warmer.
Michael B. Jordan?
Warmer.
How about that actor that was Muscle in Hulu's Culprits?
Stuart Jarrett. Oh, he's the just like Goldilocks pick.
They'd have to recast Montrose Freeman too, though, because unfortunately Michael Kenneth Williams passed away.
I was heartbroken. I loved him in The Wire and Boardwalk Empire.
He'll be missed. Would you be happy if Jeffrey Wright was Montrose?
Oh, yeah, that would make me. Even if I hadn't liked the movie, at least I've liked Jeffrey's performance in everything I've seen him in.
Demolition Man had its 30th anniversary last year, so I watched it too. It's set in the no longer distant future of 2032, and it turned out to be one of the most accurate future predicting movies ever made. Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone play a villain and a cop, thawed out in an overly peaceful future.
Don't you wish you could defrost the side of Sly to go with your Haagen-Dazs?
No, I'm not a cannibal. That's a you thing.
Fun fact, allegedly, Demolition Man is based on 1986 sci-fi novel Fight of the Dead. And that's hilarious because after the movie, Demolition Man also received a novelization that fleshed out the future world and the characters more. So literally, a book based on a movie based on another book. It's kind of a double middle finger to that original author if you think about it.
When they shot this, people didn't know Wesley Snipes was a black belt in real life. He had to slow down his moves so the cameras could film them properly. I swear he was secretly auditioning for the Joker in this movie. Such a great bad guy. He needs to play them more.
That's true. And by the way, I'm not defrosting him to have him as a snack, although he is a snack. Maybe I am. I don't know.
But yeah, 30th anniversary of that movie plus the 100 challenge. That was like Murder Death Killing, two birds with one stone. I also saw Grudge Match for its 10th anniversary, another underrated Sly Stallone movie by Spider-Verse writer Rodney Rothman. I like the way that Rothman balanced the personalities and probably real-life egos of Sly and Robert De Niro without vilifying either one of them. An antagonistless film is really hard to pull off, but Grudge Match did it. It's funny, the soundtrack's great. Honestly, angered Rocky fans who didn't like that he did a boxing comedy movie off the heels of Rocky Balboa should give it another look. It's better than you think.
You got in Rockies, no, right?
Getting away from Sly Stallone, though, I also made sure to see The Exorcist for its 50th anniversary. And closer to Christmas, I watched Will Ferrell's Elf for its 20th anniversary. Oh, and on that note, I watched Enter the Dragon for its 50th anniversary, too.
At one time, without hyperbole, The Exorcist was called the scariest movie ever made. Period. If you're a horror fan, how do you not see that and check the movie out at least once in your life? Will Ferrell's Elf, that's a fun, original Christmas movie. That's the last great Christmas classic I think we've had in, well, it was 20 years old last year, so at least 20 years. It's a fun little comedy, Will Ferrell. Check it out. And, of course, Enter the Dragon. I mean, come on. One of the most influential action movies ever made. One of the most influential kung fu movies ever made. Quentin Tarantino was inspired to become a filmmaker because of that movie, at least partially. The Street Fighter video game was inspired by that movie. It's been parodied so many times in pop culture. And it's Bruce Lee kicking everybody's butt. Who doesn't love that? 2023 was also the 20th TV anniversary for Teen Titans, so you know I had to watch some of their movie tie-ins as part of my WB 100. Teen Titans, man, kudos to them. The same voice cast for 20 years. That is almost unheard of.
I bet you watched their tie-ins too, didn't you?
I sure did. Teen Titans Go to the movies, Teen Titans The Judas Contract, and Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo.
Yeah, everybody makes fun of Teen Titans Go, but Teen Titans Go to the movies wasn't that terrible. Seth Rogen did a surprisingly good job as Slade, especially considering he was trying to fill Ron Perlman's shoes. They addressed the whole meta thing of Teen Titans Go turning the Robin character into a joke. And that movie set up Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go, where they tried to give the fanboys a version of what they wanted, and y'all still complain, so you can't win, you know what I mean? That said, I can't pretend like Teen Titans Go to the movies didn't have some plot holes and some padding in there. Teen Titans The Judas Contract, that one was fun. That one was just a little bit darker than Teen Titans usually went at the time, and definitely darker than Teen Titans Go ever goes. You got one of my favorite scenes in there where Damian Robin gets electrocuted by Blue Beetle, and they're legit worried they just unalived him for a second. That little brat getting zapped is one of my favorite DC moments, no joke. And of course, you've got Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo. That's a nice little movie for the Teen Titans fans, the ones that miss that version of the show. You got the Robin Starfire relationship getting culminated in that one. You've got them singing the theme song in Japanese at the end for all the anime fans. It's fun. It's a fun time.
Then I saw 1990's House Party because it happened to be streaming on Tubi TV. It's dated offensive humor, but that never bothered me. It's weird though. House Party 2, in my opinion, had a better soundtrack. Then, since House Party got me missing John Witherspoon so much, I watched the entire Ice Cube Friday franchise as part of my Warner Brothers 100 movies.
Come on. Now you're saying franchises count too? You unintentionally did it going into The Flash, but when you intentionally just watch 20 of the same movie, you're totally padding the numbers.
I am not. It's only cheating if the only things I watch were long franchises. Sometimes I'd watch the whole franchise, sometimes I wouldn't.
All right. So how many franchises did you end up watching?
Only because I love all the entries in these movies. I binged. Get ready for this list, kid.
All
Friday,
right.
Harold and Kumar, A Nightmare on Elm Street,
Mm,
Godzilla vs. Kong,
yeah.
and Rush Hour.
All right. Not bad. Go ahead.
The comedies on that list are quotable as hell and not afraid to offend people, which is scarce nowadays. As for Nightmare, come on, what can I say that hasn't already been said about Freddy Krueger? The man's a legend. I even watched the reboot of that. Godzilla vs. Kong, I groaned when I first heard about it. You're telling me that you're gonna remake a crossover. I mean, that screams desperation, right? But I'll be darned if I didn't watch all those movies and like them. I still wish, though, that they remade the part where King Kong shoves the tree into Godzilla's mouth.
I saw the mini trailer they have for New Empire. Maybe you'll see Godzilla's toothpick in this one. I don't know though, Donnie. That's a lot of franchises still.
Well, there's plenty of franchises that I only watch the first entries of. All right, listen to this list.
Okay, go ahead.
Lethal Weapon, House Party, like I said, The Hangover, The Matrix, Harry Potter, The Conjuring,
Ooh.
It 2017, Final Destination, The Exorcist, and Gremlins.
That's still a lot. Go ahead, uh-huh.
The thing is, why torture myself with diminishing returns? Can we be honest? With the exception of Harry Potter, the other first entries in those series are the best ones. We all know it. Even Warner Brothers knows it. That's why only the first Matrix was in their 100 action-adventure pack. And that's why only The Conjuring and Final Destination were in their 100 Frights packs. And with the Critters franchise, I was actually somewhere in the middle. I only watched the first 4 of that franchise. That's because no Kyoto Brothers means it's not canon to me. That's a me thing. I don't care.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. But I'm going to start calling you Paddington Bear, Donnie, because let me guess, you watched every other Batman movie too?
No, just The Dark Knight. Oh, well, and Batman 1943, which was actually the first on-screen Robin appearance. And it was in black and white. See, kid, I finally got an old movie in there after all.
Okay.
All right, and that's all that well, okay, and The Killing Joke. Well, and Return of the Joker from Batman Beyond.
All right.
And the Lego movie. And Merry Little Batman, but that was for the show. That was for us.
Oh, yeah, that totally doesn't count for this, but it does. Okay, go ahead.
And Justice League. And that's the last Batman. Well, okay, and Blue Beetle, which is Batman adjacent. And the Batman versus Dracula. But that's it.
Oh, golly, that's a plenty of them. Holy smokes. By the way, we spoiler reviewed Merry Little Batman in episode 1. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification button, and go listen to that episode when you're done here.
So, quick thoughts on those. Merry Little Batman, we already reviewed it. The Dark Knight, come on, it's the only Batman movie to win an Academy Award, and you got the iconic Heath Ledger in there. I didn't see that one right away when it came out. I saw it later, and everybody was praising Heath in there. And I went in with low expectations, going, okay, but like the guy just died, and you don't want to speak ill of the dead. How much of that is just them hyping up the dead guy? And he
Right.
blew away. He blew away my low expectations.
He was so good in that.
Yeah. Batman 1943, that was cool to see, honestly. That was like a 3 hour epic black and white thing that they pieced together from the old days. You used to have to go to the drive-in when you were my grandma's age. You'd go to the drive-in, you'd pay your nickel or whatever it was back then, and you'd have to come back every week and see how the movie unfolds. And I don't know how much money they made back then, but that thing's like 3 hours. It was fun. It was fun rewatching that.
Those old serials are a lot of fun. Okay. Yeah.
The Killing Joke, I didn't mind the padding and the differences from the novelization, but maybe that's because I've never minded the Batman Batgirl ship personally. A lot of people had a problem with that one, and Mark Hamill specifically said that he didn't play the dark stuff or interpret it as dark as maybe they intended. And in his mind, Joker didn't do the thing, he just wanted people to think he did the thing. So take
Yeah.
that however take that however you want.
That's a good grain of salt to know. Go ahead.
Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, who doesn't love that one? A lot of people count that as their canon unofficial ending to Batman Beyond. You got the Batman Beyond cast in there, the Batman the Animated Series cast in there. You get to see how all the future characters fleshed out. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good time.
What about the Lego one?
Lego Movie was a surprisingly fun time, a lot like the Barbie movie. You think you're just gonna get, a 90-minute toy ad when you sit down to watch these, and it is that, but it ends up being so much more than that. There is a human plot here with Will Ferrell and his son that was so relatable and so funny and so fun to watch. Not to mention, you have all the cool crossover moments in Lego Movie. You got Batman stealing stuff off the Millennium Falcon, and all the cool stuff that we fans would do when playing with our Legos or our other toys. Definitely check that movie out. It's a cute little cartoon movie, and adults will appreciate it too.
Blue Beetle, now that one, they had me the minute they announced Solo Maridueña as the star of it. I loved him in Cobra Kai. I'm disappointed that the Funko Pop for that is not blue.
Aw.
George Lopez is hilarious in that movie too, and I'm not usually a George Lopez guy.
No. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. You're right. Kind of iffy on him sometimes.
Batman vs. Dracula, it is unintentionally hilarious that the world's greatest detective had to figure out that Dr. Acula was actually Dracula? My God.
That's just ground shaking. I don't know what to think about that. I
I
wouldn't.
do, yeah. You wouldn't have figured that out. Yeah, I know. And I do wish though, as fun as that movie was, I do wish it had been more like the comic book. That one was a lot more graphic and adult.
That might have been nicer. But talking about a guy who's best pals with another guy that wears glasses during the day and they don't know that he's not Superman. So that kind of tracks that you wouldn't know it was Dracula. Though I never saw Batman versus Dracula, I imagine it was a decent cape off. I have to admit, I always enjoyed a campy Hammer film, especially when it featured Christopher Lee as Dracula. And even if they revoke my woke feminist membership, I've always found the entourage of ditzy damsels in distress hilarious.
And they'll be out of that dress when they meet Jim West.
So wait, I don't get your logic. Even though you said you're not a completionist for the purposes of this list, why did you pick the Lego movie with less Batman in it for your Batman binge?
So I actually forgot Batman was in the first Lego movie until he popped up on the screen. By that point, yeah, I know. By that point, I wasn't trying to watch Batman. I was actually intentionally trying to watch Warner Brothers animation that wasn't just DC, Scooby-Doo, or Looney Tunes, because those IPs tend to get all the love when it comes to WB animation. I tried to give other stuff a shot, but I guess it gets all the love for a reason, because I only got as far as the Lego Movie, Happy Feet, and Storks, all of which were loaded with great voice casts. I mean, Happy Feet alone had Elijah Wood, Robin Williams, Hugh Jackman, and Nicole Kidman.
That is a good cast. Did you watch any of the live action animation films like Cool World,
I did watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
the one based on Gary K. Wolf's Who Censored Roger Rabbit?
Yup. And I watched Looney Tunes back in action while I was at it.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is one of the best cartoon crossovers ever made, with Warner Brothers collaborating with Disney. Hasn't happened before, probably won't happen again, unless they get bought out or something. And you got Christopher Lloyd in that movie. It's so fun. It's so funny. And of course, Jessica Rabbit. Come on, one of the most. If you're into cartoon women, which a lot of dudes on the internet are, she was one of the cartoon sex symbols. Looney Tunes Back in Action, though, that one, out of all these 100 movies, it might be the most mid one of the bunch. It's not bad, it just felt unnecessary to me. It felt like something they made just to hold on to the Looney Tunes rights a little bit longer. Not in a bad Fantastic Four 1994 sort of a way, but I don't know, it just didn't click for me. They hit all the familiar notes. You've got the great meta humor that the Looney Tunes were known for. You've got all the great celebrity cameos. And they tried to give us an interesting plot with Daffy quitting the Tunes and going off to Vegas because he was tired of playing second fiddle to Bugs Bunny all the time. But this one just didn't hit me. It just feels like it's just kind of there. I honestly think I'd recommend Space Jam above this one, and probably a bunch of other great Looney Tunes content as well.
But no, not Cool World. I'm pretty sure Roger Rabbit's success helped Cool World get made back in the day, though. I remember part of Cool World's plot had a toon and a human having a baby, which was literally earth-shattering because the two worlds weren't supposed to interact like that. That storyline really stuck with me. I ripped it off, and I made my DC and Marvel action figures make babies together. I did that as a kid. It was definitely not last week at all, no matter what kid tells you.
You can't divulge that sort of info to our audience and then not tell them what new superpowers the OC babies had, not last week, apparently.
I made Flash hook up with Sue Storm because super speed plus invisibility is unbeatable. I mean, come on, right? And I had Robin hook up with Jubilee because they flirted in a comic once and they were of similar ages. But Robin doesn't have superpowers, so it was kind of boring. It was just Jubilee, but she's a little bit smarter. And my Batman knocked up my sister's Barbie.
Personally, I just saw Cool World as an updated Pygmalion, not creepy Pinocchio. I probably would have watched A Scanner Darkly. It's inspired by one of my favorite fiction authors, Philip K. Dick.
I'd love to make a joke there, but I can't. Blade Runner, Imposter, Paycheck, Next, The Adjustment Bureau, Minority Report, Total Recall, and the Man in the High Castle series were all based on Philip K. Dick's sci-fi stories.
I'm so proud of you for resisting that urge. I won't pretend that A Scanner Darkly is happy rainbows and unicorns or an action flick. It's not. It's more of a cult, art house, thought-provoking, trippy kind of movie about a narcotics officer that gets addicted to the drug he was assigned to investigate. Robert Downey Jr. delivers a devastatingly real addict's performance. It's tragic and breathtaking at the same time. But getting back to the Warner Brothers list, tell us more.
I also watched Man of Steel, Superman Shazam: The Return of Black Adam, and Superman vs. the Elite for Superman Day. Man of Steel, great start to the Snyderverse, very different Superman movie, very divisive, but I liked it. Superman Shazam: Return of Black Adam was also good, but they misled me. That was actually a short. It's only like 10-15 minutes long. It's one of 4 shorts on a DVD, and that was disappointing because I thought I was getting a whole movie like that, and I didn't.
Yeah, that'd
You
be a
know,
bummer.
yeah. Now, as far as Superman versus the Elite, when the average moviegoer thinks of Superman villains, they think Lex Luthor, General Zod, and maybe Brainiac. So it was really cool and refreshing to see different villains get the spotlight in this one. It was cool seeing the Elite, and apparently James Gunn wants to make the Authority a thing in his universe, and I'm looking forward to that.
Wait. You said Man of Steel, and before that you said Justice League. You skipped the Batman versus Superman middle of the Snyderverse?
No, the Justice League I saw was actually the Whedon cut, which I still argue is a good movie when you watch it in a vacuum. It's only bad because Joss Whedon turned out to be Joss Whedon and because the tone was too different from what Snyder was setting up. I only watched Man of Steel actually because it started the Snyderverse and The Flash was supposed to end the Snyderverse, but then Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom changed its release date. Again.
I didn't mind Man of Steel. I know it gets loads of hate. I wish they'd done a prequel on Krypton featuring more Jor-El, but then again, I'm a huge Russell Crowe fan. I felt it melded both Christopher Reeve's Superman movie plots pretty well. Michael Shannon of Bullet Train and Midnight Special gave Zod depth. He was a mite underutilized, but all in all, I'd watch it again.
I gave serious consideration to making the Snyder Cut my big epic 100th final boss movie, but I chose a different one instead. Stay tuned for that reveal.
Bum bum bum. Anyways, I never really got the Jason Momoa hype. It's not that he's bad. It's just that I think he's usually miscast. He might have made an okay Prince Namor, but he absolutely should have never ever been Aquaman. And then they settled his character with Yahoo as his catchphrase. It's so weird.
Let me guess. If you had to pick from someone already in the movie's cast to play Aquaman, it would have been, I'm going to say, Patrick Wilson?
Oh, yes, please. That would have been terrific. If I had to go with a younger actor, I think even Zac Efron would have worked if they silver blonded his hair. Most people probably would have picked Warner Brothers' lowest rated movies for their last one. Probably because that'd be the hardest one to sit through. I don't know. Did you do that?
I did not do that. And the lowest rated one being the hardest one to sit through, I mean, not necessarily. I got through Mr. Nanny no problem. Everyone says that movie sucks, but it's been ripped off twice. By the way, by the time this airs, we'll have passed the 40th anniversary of Hulkamania. Congrats to the Hulkster brother.
Congrats. But I gotta say, the best thing about that movie was Brutus Beefcake. You know, there had to be a better Warner Brother movie featuring a wrestler to see than Mr. Nanny.
From my personal Warner Brothers collection, just Rampage with The Rock.
The Rock befriends a monkey? It doesn't sound like a movie. It sounds more like a Chris Kattan SNL skit. Wait. Now I'm curious. You can't expect me to believe that you willingly watched and liked 100 movies. Not to be negative, but what was your least favorite? And no, you can't pick any artsy fartsy or black and white ones either.
There were three, actually. Scoob. I bought that movie in 2020 when I was stuck at home. I didn't mind the first 20 minutes. It was an origin story. You see how Shaggy met Scooby, you see how the gang formed, and then they lovingly recreated the opening from the original Scooby-Doo TV series as a montage in the movie, which was brilliant.
Yeah, that is.
I liked all that. But then the rest of the movie happened, and it was pretty redundant. Trying to be a Marvel movie with all these Hanna-Barbera characters, and it didn't work for me.
It sounds like it was promising, but blew it.
Then there was Lottery Ticket. That is a 2010 alleged comedy, but I didn't see any. But, humor's subjective. Somebody probably loved it. It's your typical plot. Guy wins the lottery, but he can't cash the ticket for 3 days, and everybody wants it, blah, blah, blah. But making movies is hard. I respect the filmmakers and everyone involved in that. And the last movie on my least favorite of the Warner Brothers 100 was also a 2010 movie based on the DC Vertigo comic. It's The Losers. I wanted to like this more than I did. You got Idris Elba in there, you got Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It's basically a covert CIA team gets a burn notice and decides to retaliate against their superiors. I thought, because it was DC Vertigo, I thought it was going to be more superhero-y, it was more action-y, and I just wasn't in the mood for the time.
But Chris Evans and Blagaiver, Idris Elba and Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim. At least Max Martini and Charlie Day are in it. And I know you love you some Charlie Day.
I do love me some Charlie Day. And actually, I do own that Pacific Rim movie. That is a fun movie. But it just didn't make my list this time. That's how many great movies Warner Brothers has. Some just don't make the cut. But WB did put Pacific Rim on their 100 futuristic thrillers list. Side note, if Kit actually liked a movie with mechas and kaiju in it, that's saying something.
Yeah, that is true. And I really do like that one. I even like Netflix's 14-episode animated spin-off series Pacific Rim The Black. I guess there's even going to be a prequel graphic novel.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure also gets an honorable mention in the dislike section, not because of the hilarious movie, I want to be clear about that,
Oh, good.
but yeah, but because I only watched that one in honor of the late great Paul Rubens who passed away, so that was just kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, it is bittersweet. I love Paul Rubens' cameo in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, and of course, seeing him in the Gotham television series as Penguin's estranged father, Elijah Van Dahl.
And speaking of death, I saw 1990's Hard to Kill with Death himself, William Sadler, and that guy Steven Seagal. After a 7-year coma, the LAPD detective seeks justice and wants to get even with everyone responsible. He's gonna
Ooh.
be hard to kill.
You mean, Steven, I want to be known as a great writer and a great actor someday rather than a sex symbol that I'll always remember as a pompous ass that treats his fans like dirt, Seagal?
No, I mean Steven, I broke Sir Sean Connery's wrist, Seagal.
Oh, that guy. Seeing as action films tend to be beef jerky for guys, I know I thought they'd feature more on your list. I know they did in mine.
Well, I saw 7 after that. I'd say that's more action thriller than horror. Two cops hunting a serial killer who uses the 7 deadly sins as his motives? Come on.
Ouch, you did make your Friday the 13th mistake again. Spoiler here, but I think getting your wife's head in a box from a serial killer qualifies it as a horror thriller. You know, like Silence of the Lambs or one of those Alex Cross movies.
Yeah, well, either way, I already passed number 7 by the time I started tracking these numbers, so it's not a mistake. Silence of the Lambs, though, another great movie, one of the only award-winning horror films, and for years Hollywood tried to say, it's not horror. Yes, it is.
It definitely is. Now you're getting down to The Wire. I know it's kind of late, but if you would have factored in series with the way you fudged your counting, you could have banked a solid 60 episodes out of your list of 100 and been more than halfway done.
That's true, that's a good point. Warner Brothers Television is a whole separate but equally worthy conversation to have, but on another day, because this episode's going to be a long one as it is. Shout out to 100 or so years of Warner Brothers TV too, though. Anyway, I saw Fred Claus and Christmas Vacation at Christmas time. I took a girl to see Fred Claus, actually, and she wanted to leave early, and I thought she wanted to leave early, you know what I mean? But it turned out, no, she wanted to leave early because the movie's bad. I was so excited for what I thought was going to happen, I didn't even get my money back before we left the theater.
I can't believe you're still upset over the tickets. We went on BOGO Tuesday. That means one ticket was basically free, Donnie. Besides, I still say the movie's bad.
And I say Vince Vaughn is a charismatic shyster. I like that movie more than I should thanks to that memory.
Even though I like Vince Vaughn, I put him in the guy next door category.
Christmas Vacation, though, come on now, that's a Christmas classic. We actually thought about deep diving into all 100 of these movies, but honestly, what are we gonna add to the conversation about stuff like The Shawshank Redemption,
Still haven't seen it.
or The Wizard of Oz, which is still so popular even after all this time? By the way, the 2-part prequel Wicked with Ariana Grande is being made. That's pretty wicked of them to split it into 2 parts like that.
I see it or a variation of Wizard of Oz every year.
Or what are we gonna add to the conversation about Goodfellas? Which, I mean, come on, who doesn't like wise guys?
Okay. My mind automatically flips to Leo Getz whining about what happens at a drive-thru.
All those aforementioned movies did make the cut, by the way. But my point is, we're pretty sure you heard how great these movies are by now, and if you haven't watched them yet, you ain't gonna.
True.
I also saw Barbie, but not Oppenheimer. My theater wasn't doing the double feature.
Aw,
Although, to be honest, I didn't really want to see Oppenheimer anyway. It looked boring to me. 3-hour, depressing biopic about the inventor of the bomb? I mean, come on, right?
That does look sad, but I do like the actor.
Oh, sure, the casting's great. Christopher Nolan's great, but I'm gonna wait to see that one. And I saw 2012's Argo. Honestly, Ben Affleck should direct more. Argo's not a bad movie, it's just not usually my preference. Under the pretext of scouting out a film location in Tehran, the CIA tries to mount a rescue mission to save hostages.
Another serious movie. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I'm watching 100 movies here. Eventually, you run out of, like, your favorites and the obvious ones, and you just kind of start picking ones at random, and that's kind of what Argo was for me. Good time, just not my thing.
Yeah. What else?
And I saw Inception, which was the last film in Warner Brothers 100 DVD set, incidentally. And they also included it in their 100 sci-fi collection. All I can say for sure is there's a thief that can steal corporate secrets through people's dreams. It's a very confusing movie. It still confuses me. The thief's tragic past might screw up his mission or something. I don't know. I wish I could comment more on the movie, but like honestly, yeah, it's Inception. It's confusing as heck.
I think it's supposed to be a real mind twister, and it is. You're right. Okay. All the stuff you said, what ended up being your big 100th?
Drum roll, please. Stephen King's 3-hour-ish long It miniseries, but in its recut movie form.
Oh no, more cheating.
It's not cheating, but it was a mistake not watching this around the same time that I watched It 2017. I will admit that much. This thing is so fun, man. You got Tim Curry in there, one of the scariest roles he ever did. You got John Ritter in there. May he rest in peace. I missed the miniseries back in the day, and I think a lot of other 90s kids were like that too. A lot of us, I think, grew up on that VHS tape and later that DVD of this. So a lot of us only knew this as a movie. So when they did finally canonically movie adapt it in 2017, I can see why that one broke all kinds of horror records. Even this one, being a miniseries cut down and edited slightly to make it safer for work for television, even then, this is scary as heck, and it's a fun time if you have the time. Check it out, you guys.
So that was my Warner Brothers 100. What's yours? Comment down below and tell us which ones we missed or which ones you watched for your Warner Brothers 100 challenge.
Well, I started off with a classic by Jonathan.
You know what? We're out of time, actually.
No, wait. Are you kidding?
That's all, folks.